thought every kind of bug in the world can attack you. I don't hardly get any bugs. And I haven't. And then, what about your pH? What if it's too low or it's too high? You know, none of these things really matter if you're farming or gardening correctly, which we'll talk about this. But I do want to mention that we now have had for the last year such a marvelous event called drought. I think it's fabulous that we had this drought. I'm so excited about the drought because finally we got people talking about climate weirding. Climate weirding is what it is.
The polar vortex.
Yeah, it's not climate warming. It's not global warming. It's not freezing. It's climate weirding. And you know, I mentioned that I was a pilot and I taught meteorology out of college, and I don't know any meteorologists that don't think something really strange is going on. So anybody that's saying that climate change is a liberal
Conspiracy.
It's all fun.
it's yes, they're way wrong. But the big deal is drought, and what are we going to do about it? Because 5 years ago I went to a talk from the Forest Service, and they said we are going to go into these events that are fewer and fewer times of rainfall, harder and harder rainfall, less rainfall, 25% less rain in the next 20 years, possibly 50% less rain by 2100. Now, we probably won't be around then, right, unless we're really ancient. But how does that affect how we're going to garden?
7 generations.
7 generations, exactly. What are we setting up? Because the last century, it turns out, was an anomaly. It was weird that we had as much rain as we had. Okay? So what can we do? Well, that's where permaculture comes in. So you're wondering what permaculture is. Is it a new hairdo? It's just for women. It's gardening for women, right? Yeah? Permaculture. Remember when we all used to do this? Okay. So permaculture is a design science.
Too much in the tanning.
Exactly. Okay, a design science so that you can have all your needs met while meeting the needs of the ecosystem around you. That's what permaculture is. And it's based on creating regenerating human settlements that live in harmony with nature. All right? And when we're doing this, we base what we do on the permaculture ethics. And there's 3 ethics. And they are the basis of our designing. They are earth care, fair share, and people care. All right? And so each one of these works together. If we don't take care of the earth, we're not going to be able to take care of the people, and we're not going to have enough fair share to be able to go around. I think instead of going to war, we should take that same money and give everyone on the planet a hybrid house that's zero energy, that creates its own water from water harvesting, with gardens and everything, so everybody's got everything they need, and get rid of war. That's what I think we should do.
Yeah.
Or straw bale hybrids, whatever. That's the direction we should be going. Also in permaculture, we have principles, and I'm not going to go into those today, but you can look it up online. But what we say is permaculture everything, and the basis of this is edible landscaping. This, I'll show you more of this in a bit, but this is my friend's house on a granite hillside that was completely denuded by mining and logging, and we were able to do this great garden there for her using sheet mulch, which I'll show you in a bit. When we say edible, who are we talking about? Edible for anyone, anything. Us, the animals, the other creatures. So we make abundance available. How many of you have fruit trees? Have you ever noticed that nature's in abundance? If every single flower on that fruit tree made fruit, probably break the tree, right? But nature goes for abundance. And so why shouldn't we go for abundance and stop this nonsense about war? You know, it just drives me nuts when I just saw yesterday, that's why I'm talking about it, 50% of our economy goes towards war. What do we get out of it? Nothing.
I don't even know what we're fighting about anyway.
Right now?
Contracts for the big companies.
It's all for the high-end people, you know?
It's an industry.
All right, so what we do in permaculture is we look at patterns. We look at nature's patterns. So like when I was driving down, I had to go to the library in Penn Valley today, and I was coming to the end of Pleasant Valley Road by the signal, and I looked up and saw a beautiful forest there. And I was wondering to myself, I wonder who takes care of this? Nature. So permaculture is based on creating patterns or observing patterns and replicating those patterns the way nature would. So, you know, I meet people who want to show me pictures or come over and look at my place, and they put in this big, you know, they took all the trees out and then they put rows in, and it's all in sun, full sun, and it's cooking out there. And when do you ever see nature do that? What nature does, you know, you can go see what nature does, and whatever we're growing came from someplace. I have these really old books about where vegetables came from. It's really interesting to see where broccoli came from, the Mediterranean, you know, where lettuce came from and all that. And what we want to replicate is creating an environment like where it came from, rather than what our neighbor told us, or how did you learn to garden, right? Because a lot of times we learn to garden with these old models that don't really work well. Okay, and a lot of the farming done around here is using those old models too, even if they're organic or not using chemicals. All they've done is substituted for the chemicals. They still put all this crap on the soil that kills the microbes. We don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. We'll talk about that some more in a bit. So one of the patterns we look at is, have you ever been redone a kitchen, and maybe an architect, her husband's an architect, or somebody that's a kitchen designer might talk about the paths in the kitchen, the zones of use in the kitchen. You know, and there's a little triangle, and then, you know, you want to have the triangle between the sink and the refrigerator and the stove. You know about that, right? And how it works better if you have that kind of zoning in your kitchen. So we zone property the same way with frequency of use. So for example, there's on Cedar Ridge, there's a mushroom farm, and they had me come out right when they bought the property. And I started looking at their plans of what they wanted to do. They were going to put the chickens over there, and then the compost pile was going to be way over there. And I'm like, now you're going to have to take a wheelbarrow and take the chicken poop over to the compost pile. Why don't you just put them right next to each other? And so you start looking at what you want to do and how you're going to place things based on frequency of use. All right, so now I want to go into the word sustainability. I think it's been co-opted like the word green, right? Do you know that the airlines now are sustainable?
Oh.
As long as they get taxpayers. I just heard that the other day. And I'm like,
Waste management too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Waste management.
Management will tell you on the sides of the truck.
Okay, so
And
I
they're
want to get
green.
down into what is really sustainable, so you can think about this in your own life. All right? So we've got on the left there, and this is a true story. My brother was a missionary in Chile, so I went down to visit him for his wedding. And I was very excited to be on their farm. They called the Parcela. And I got up in the morning, and I looked out the window, and there was a little kid on the property next door, and he's spraying something on the plants. And the container's down on the ground, so I crept over there and looked to see what it was. It was in English. It was malathion. And I was just like, I can't even believe it. He's in shorts. He's just spraying. All right, so whether we spray our food or whether we spray ourselves while we're spraying our food, I mean, this is all going into the water. They say now that Roundup is in everything, the placenta, our bodies, the water, and this is the master garden. This is, you know who Bonnie told me this. She's our entomologist. She told me there was Roundup in every creek and lake and the Sacramento River.
They told me that it becomes inert after one day.
Well, guess what?
It's alive.
They didn't do any studies on it, but they did in France, where they showed it has a life of, they had to take biodegradable off the package. It's not inert, it's terrible. And what it's doing is it's mutating the microbes in the soil. Yes, don't use it.
You know, Kathy, you know how you're talking about the GMOs?
Yeah.
And, you know, as I think long and hard about them sometimes, I think, because, you know, like, the pro-GM people, well, there's no difference between this GM tomato and this GM tomato. They say nutritional difference.
That's a lie.
And I'm saying, okay, there might not be a nutritional difference. Trust me, they have so much pesticides. We're not talking nutritional, vitamin A, B, whatever. But we're talking about when you drench a plant in that much pesticides and herbicides over such a short lifespan, it's gonna be in the food itself, and I'm wondering if some of those health things are more related to the chemicals because they can now douse themselves
Well,
in.
are
Well,
you
the-
aware that corn,
It actually produces
GM
it.
corn is registered as a pesticide?
It actually produces it.
It produces a
that
pesticide.
one.
I really
Yeah.
want that in my body.
And BT, the bacteria that it produces,
Right.
it intestines.
And it destroys ours. You get
So
leaky
when we
gut, you get
consume it, the
IBS,
same thing happens.
and it's widespread.
People in India, farmers in India have committed suicide.
That's right.
Because the cotton in the field, which is GM cotton, they usually put their cattle out there to feed on them, on the stubble afterwards, and it kills the cow. Cows are sacred in India.
Yeah, in the U.S., pigs, cows, all the different farm animals now are aborting like crazy. And the farmers are trying to figure out what's going on. As soon as they get off the GM feed, they come back normal. The other thing is, this is the one that really gets me, because, we had a permaculture booth at the fair here about 5 years ago. I had my whole sustainable solar kitchen out there, and we built a little straw bale house with Renee and Tom, and it was really cool. And this guy came by and looked at it, and he tells me, "Hey, my name's so-and-so, and I was the inventor of the Green Revolution." And I go, "Oh, the GM corn in India? Oh, yeah. And I was just like gagging, and I go, "How'd that turn out?" And he's like, "Wonderful. And I knew I couldn't say anything to him. But guess what? How it's turning out? Okay, greater crops. They're down 92% now of if you did commercial. That's the yield for GM.
And they've destroyed the land.
And
How long does it
And health.
Yeah.
if you're using Roundup for quite a long time. And the other thing, but you can use compost tea to heal it. The other thing is, this is the one that really gets me. So you get to use Roundup. It's an herbicide, right? So you get to use Roundup. So you spray all this Roundup in. You need more and more and more as time goes on. Now there's these super weeds that the Roundup's not killing anymore. So the farmer calls Monsanto and goes, "What's the deal here? The Roundup's not killing the superweed." And Monsanto has the nerve to tell them, "Go hand pick the weeds." Wait a minute, wasn't that what this whole thing was about?
Yeah, but Cafe, now they're starting to use Agent Orange.
Yeah, Agent Orange is coming up, ladies and gentlemen.
So I'm gonna say something that's probably not gonna feel good with, it doesn't even feel good with me either, but I think it's something that needs to be said. So, one would ask ourselves, why do we have GMO? Why has it been so important to have GMO?
It's all about them.
No,
because they can
really,
patent it.
go to the basis of it, why?
To increase yields.
And why do we need to increase yields?
It's a lie.
Because we have
Money.
so
It's
It's called marketing.
No, it's about
It's all about
Is there enough food? When you're digging down wells in India, going miles down to get fresh water, do we have enough?
Guess what? GM takes 5 times more water than the camera.
We already have the science to change all this.
Yes.
My son is a Northern California distributor of a product called Suma Green.
Oh, yeah.
Suma Grow, have you heard of that?
Yeah.
If you compare it with compost tea, tea has 500,000 of your microbials. The Suma Green has over 1 trillion microbes, and it creates this web system into the soil. 50% reduction in runoff, 20% reduction in watering, and this stuff is phenomenal. And your yields are higher.
Yeah,
you don't need any of the.
We're going to go
foods
that
and-
direction as we're talking here.
So we already have the answer,
what's
everybody.
important To me in all of this.
It's just getting it
is-
out.
Is not
Yeah,
bad mouthing.
most people don't know about it.
Something that has evolved over 50 years or something like that, not 25 years, we can forgive scientists and I can forgive them too. Because what's important is that we don't forget how to grow.
Exactly, and that's where I'm going with this, is why you need to grow, why we need to take responsibility for our own food.